Adults know what slavery really involved. It involved torture. It involved taking a baby from their mother. So in the context of that, how is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization? In the midst of these atrocities, that there was some benefit.
All right, guys, so we got to react to this very interesting CNN panel discussion regarding the new big lie coming from the Democrat Party about Florida's education curriculum when it comes to African-American studies. I'm pretty sure you guys have already heard by now. Democrats are boohoo, whining, and crying, led by Kamala Harris, by the way, about Florida allegedly wanting to teach children that slavery benefited slaves, right? It benefited black people, which is just not true. It's just an outright lie. Now, I've already done a video on this in the past, explaining why this is a lie, why this is nonsense, because if you actually look at the African-American studies curriculum, nowhere in that curriculum is it implying that slavery was a net benefit or was a positive thing for slaves. In fact, it details how tragic slavery was, the conditions of slavery, which were terrible, okay, atrocious conditions. It thoroughly outlines how bad slavery actually was. But in one section of the curriculum, they say that, well, you know, slaves, they had skills, okay, despite being slaves, they learned skills, okay, and some slaves used those skills for their own personal benefit. Now, again, Democrats have interpreted that line to basically mean that, well, they're trying to say that slavery was good for black folks, right? This is what Republicans are trying to teach, which again is just a flat out lie, right? Only an idiot could read a line like that, interpret it that way, okay? So CNN is going to have a panel discussion on this. They're going to have a debate on this. And there's one guy in particular, Scott Jennings, who is going to basically go off on Kamala Harris for telling this blatant lie. And this is probably one of the only times on CNN where you're going to see somebody on the network actually call out this lie for what it is. It's a lie. Otherwise, everybody else is pelling this story. They're not fact checking it. They're not actually critically analyzing the Democrats and their wild claims. They're just running with it as if it's facts. And it's really stunning because if you compare this to how CNN responds when Republicans claim that Democrats are pushing a radical gender agenda in school, like they're pushing pride, LGBTQ in school, even though we have facts and evidence, like real facts and evidence showing that that is what they're pushing in school, they'll say that you're lying, right? That you're making it up. It's a conspiracy. Okay, it's a conspiracy that there are explicit books in school that, again, Democrats and the woke revolutionaries are pushing in school, even though we have facts that we have the actual books with explicit images, right? Sexual acts, okay, in school. And they'll say that the parents are extremists, okay, and white supremacists for protesting against it. Again, this is why this network is failing, okay? So, yeah, without further ado, let's just go ahead and react to this.
I know that you have heard a lot of Democrats over the past 2.5 years saying the vice president needs to get out there more. Where's Kamala? All of those things. What do you make of this?
It was a stellar moment, and I think she did something that she has done often in the last couple of years, which is in a moment when something needed to be said, she got out there and said it and really channeled what people were feeling. I mean, the idea that we would literally have a conversation, I mean, I have to laugh, it's so disgusting, that there were personal benefits of any kind to slaves. That's like saying women, you know, were happy when we couldn't vote and we couldn't have our own banking accounts. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I mean, were they? Right? Were women happier? I think that that's a legitimate debate and discussion to be had, but that's not what this video topic is about. This woman is a campaign advisor for Hillary Clinton, right? In 2016, she was a campaign advisor. That campaign lost, okay, to Trump. This same person is on CNN. They're giving her a platform for her to say that it was a stellar moment for Kamala Harris to come out and to lie about what is in Florida's curriculum, right? That's a stellar moment for Kamala Harris. Do you guys understand how low the bar is, right, for the alleged black woman vice president, right? I mean, you got to understand, like, the bar is so low, right? It's on the floor, okay? All Kamala has to do is have a moment, right, in order for her to get praise and applause. And that whole moment, this whole moment is built on a lie. A lie. Like, this is just made up. It's fabricated. It's nonsense, right? Again, this is how desperate the Democrats are. This is how desperate they are.
She's had these moments when she's talked about reproductive freedom, when she went down to Tennessee after the shooting and the two gentlemen were expelled from the legislature. I mean, she's been able to, in these moments, speak to what people are feeling. I think we're going to see a lot more of it throughout this campaign. We're going to see her on the road talking about these issues and reminding us that that's literally, as we're talking about the economy and we're talking about the progress that the Biden-Harris administration has made, there are also very real, serious issues at stake in terms of who gets to be part of our democracy.
Yeah, again, and this is why Kamala has the lowest ratings ever for a VP, right? She's the most disliked vice president basically in modern history, right? More disliked than Dick Cheney, okay, who shot his friend on a hunting trip, right? Again, more disliked than that guy. And this is why Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, because of people like this woman who is living in delusional world, right? Who believes that this was somehow some great moment for Kamala Harris to come out here and to just flat out lie to the American people about this issue.
Well, it's amazing to me that how little Kamala Harris apparently has to do, that she can read something on Twitter one day and be on an airplane the next to make
Facts.
Something literally out of nothing. This is a completely made up deal. I looked at the standards. I even looked at an analysis of the standards in every instance where the word slavery or slave was used. I even read the statement of the African-American scholars that wrote the standards, not Ron DeSantis, but the scholars. Everybody involved in this says this is completely a fabricated issue. And yet, look how quickly Kamala Harris jumped on it. So the fact that this is her best moment, a fabricated matter, is pretty ridiculous in my opinion.
Let's get Ashley.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I mean, because it is fabricated, right? It's made up, okay? It's not grounded in any facts or reality. Here's the thing. I don't think that it is the worst thing in the world to acknowledge the fact that, yes, slaves learn skills, right? And those slaves took those skills and they benefited themselves. If anything, that is a story that is anti-victimhood. That is, black people can overcome, black people can do things regardless of our circumstance, right? Even under the oppression of slavery, black people still pull themselves up and they help themselves. Again, that's not to say that slavery benefited them, but they learn regardless. They still overcame regardless. But again, be damned if you tell that type of story for black folks, okay? Don't tell a story that is positive for black people, that can inspire black people, that can show the resiliency of black people in this country, okay? No, don't talk about that. No. All we need to talk about is how black people are victims. Black people are oppressed, right? Everything is the white man's fault. It's amazing. You know, they'd probably be upset too if they told the factual story about slavery, which is that, you know, when some of these slaves were released, they actually went back and they took care of their masters, right? I actually learned that when I read Booker T. Washington's book, his autobiography. Yeah, some slaves went back and took care of their masters. In fact, I want to read this passage here real quick from his book, Up From Slavery. It says, as a rule, not only did the members of my race entertain no feelings of bitterness against the whites before and during the war, but there are many instances of Negroes tenderly caring for their former masters and mistresses who, for some reason, have become poor and dependent since the war. I know of instances where the former masters of slaves have for years been supplied with money by their former slaves to keep them from suffering. I have known of still other cases in which the former slaves have assisted in the education of the descendants of their former owners. I know of a case of a large plantation in the South in which a young white man, the son of the former owner of the estate, has become so reduced in purse and self-control by reason of drink that he is a pitiable creature. And yet, notwithstanding the poverty of the colored people themselves on this plantation, they have for years supplied this young white man with the necessities of life. Hey, ain't it funny how that works? Ain't it crazy how slaves, the people that actually went through slavery, were not bitter and upset with the white man the same way that the woke revolutionaries are bitter and upset with the white man today for something that they never went through, right? Ain't it crazy how that works? So much so that these slaves who, acquired these skills, okay, it seemed to me they were, in some instances, more capable of being self-sufficient than their former masters, right? And they actually went and took care of their former masters and the descendants of their former masters, despite the fact that they were slaves at some point. I wonder if teaching that is racist, right? Because again, that goes against the narrative that, hey, black people are supposed to be eternally mad at the white man for what happened during slavery, when even the slaves themselves, in some instances, weren't even bitter and upset about it. But you'll never hear that, right? Because that's not divisive. That's actually a story that can unify people and bring people together. That's why they never tell you about it, right? That's why they never teach it. I'm just saying there's some realities of slavery, and it's a complicated thing. To just say that, well, it was horrible and that's it, and you don't want to go into details about some of the dynamics of slavery, that means that you're the ones that are not really trying to teach history. You're the ones that are trying to water down and not teach what actually happened. Okay? Just like these people don't want to teach about slavery that happened in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Europe, how slavery was everywhere. They want to make it seem like chattel slavery in America was so unique. There was no evil that ever happened like that. When that same evil was happening across the globe, okay, in all these different countries. And the white man just so happened to end it when it came to the North Atlantic slave trade, right? The white man actually helped it come to an end. But again, they don't really want to talk about that. Apparently, that's a white supremacist revisionist version of history, right?
Well, I'm glad she went down, and I'm glad she spoke on the issue. And just because black people write it don't mean that it doesn't mean it's going to be accurate. Like, we can disagree as black people as well.
Apparently we can't, right? Apparently we can't disagree as black people, because if you disagree, if you don't go along with the liberal narrative, then, you're not actually black, right? But the whole point of him saying that, well, black people have signed off on this, black scholars have signed off on this, is because it basically defeats the narrative that this is somehow racially motivated, right? Like this is racist in some way, right? I'm not sure how it can be racist for black scholars to say that, hey, slaves learn skills, right? I'm not sure how that's racist. But again, we all know why they're playing this up, okay? They're playing this up because they're trying to attack DeSantis and trying to smear Republicans as racist.
I think what the bigger picture is that this is happening in Florida. This is happening in a Florida where you have a governor who has an anti-woke bill, who has a don't say gay bill, who wants to ban DEI programs, who wants to ban Rosa Parks.
So Ron DeSantis wants to ban Rosa Parks, right? Again, this is the person that just said that, well, just because African-American scholars wrote it doesn't mean that is accurate, as if what they wrote was inaccurate. No, what they wrote was actually accurate. Slaves learned skills. That was a fact. What they put in there was factual. So she basically follows that up by making a non-factual claim that Ron DeSantis is trying to ban Rosa Parks, which I know why she's claiming this. I know where this comes from. This comes from a story about a textbook manufacturer who was manufacturing books for Florida, okay? And they went out of their way. DeSantis didn't tell them to do this. Republicans didn't tell them to do this. They went out of their way to remove references to Rosa Parks' race in discussions about the Rosa Parks story, right? Now, Democrats ran with this and tried to say, oh, well, here's evidence that Ron DeSantis wants to ban teaching that Rosa Parks was black and that black people couldn't sit at the front of the bus or something like that, right? When the reality is that Ron DeSantis didn't tell him to make those changes. They made them changes themselves. In fact, the Florida Education Department actually rejected that book's changes, right? They rejected it. But again, the liberal media didn't mention that, right? They just again, blame DeSantis for something that the textbook manufacturer went out of their way to do themselves. The same way they blame DeSantis, claiming that he's trying to ban books, okay? DeSantis is trying to ban dictionaries because teachers went out of their way to take books out of their own classes without actually being told that they needed to do that. They just did it in response to DeSantis' new law and tried to claim, well, DeSantis banned these books, when that just is not true, right? It's not true at all. It's just ridiculous stuff. But again, will this person be fact-checked on CNN? Will they actually correct her spewing a blatant falsehood on the network claiming that Ron DeSantis wants to ban Rosa Parks? Of course not.
And now you have children reading Rosa Parks or other academic books that talk about a diversity of issues. I think at this panel, we can all agree that slaves did not benefit from slavery, even if the citation says, well, they might have gotten some, but they didn't have a choice, so that's not a benefit. Slaves did not have the freedom to choose if Ron DeSantis said maybe they could have become a blacksmith, not when they didn't have the choice to become a blacksmith. And so that was what Kamala Harris is saying. And I hope in this moment, when we have such a contentious political environment, that we can all agree that slavery was not a good thing and slaves did not benefit. And then we could move on. But the problem is the governor, who is the second in the polls for the Republican nomination, won't do that.
No, the problem is woke black women like you who blatantly sit on TV and lie and spew falsehoods and then want to complain about, well, why don't we continue to have this conversation? Why can't we move on from this and talk about other issues? It's because y'all keep lying. You keep lying. You keep making things up because they're desperate to push this narrative that Ron DeSantis is the new leader of the Klan, right? He's the new grand wizard of the KKK. With some woke Hollywood celebrity said at some award ceremony, right? This is the narrative that they want to push. But like I said, man, this is just, it really is shameful that you see these liberal media networks run with this silly claim that they know is a lie. They know it's not grounded in reality and facts. Everybody knows, if you look at the curriculum holistically, that they're not trying to say that slavery benefited black people or anything like that, or was a net benefit, or was a positive thing, or was a good thing. They're not trying to say that at all. But they run with this anyways instead of calling out Democrats on blatant and obvious lies. And again, this is why, again, particularly CNN is failing, right? This is why they're failing. You can't take a network seriously when they run with this type of, BS, okay, that we clearly can see it's just not true. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.